because nobody can fill that void, only you yourself. When I was on the high, I was already terrified of the low that was going to follow, because I knew, oh my God, this is like the high is way too high, and I know it's going to hit me and it's going to be devastating.
Thanks for listening to Guidance in Recovery. I'm Keegan Reed, and every week I speak with guests to honestly explore recovery, sobriety, the struggles that come with it, and find things that help us in our recovery journeys. In this episode, we're sitting down with the incredible Naomi Morad. She's a trauma-informed psychosomatic practitioner and survivor of trafficking who turned her deepest wounds into a healing potion for others. Stick around to find out how your body holds a secret to your recovery. You're right. I, for the longest time, wanted someone to come along and say, hey, it's going to be okay. We got this. We're going to make it through and everything. But even whenever I did kind of hear a similar message, or maybe even those words from someone else, it still wasn't like, you understand, like, I can believe that we're in this together kind of thing. There was always something still lacking that was like, okay, I hear you, but I don't feel you, I guess.
Exactly. Because nobody can fill that void, only you yourself.
Okay. So filling the void, and I mean, that's a strange concept too, because the void is usually like emptiness and nothingness, right?
But that nothingness is that split. It's that separation from ourselves. And then in that separation, there's this nothingness. There's that hollowness.
Huh. Oof. That's kind of making me sad for some reason. And I mean, it's interesting because we look to fill that hole with anything and everything else. And so I know in our previous conversations, like, you talk about dissociation and how it was actually used as a coping mechanism of sorts. And so that could kind of, would that be on the same line as someone like myself that turned to alcohol to kind of fill the hole?
For sure. For sure. And when you create that split, that's the dissociation, because it's so painful in that moment, what's happening, that the best way to protect yourself is to create that split. Basically, the dissociation is a protective mechanism.
Okay.
And yes, the part that goes drinking or takes drugs is that dissociated part that is in that void, in that hole.
Gotcha. Oof. So one of the things that someone I spoke to recently, Sarah Potter, she said that in recovery, she's learned that, like, her uncomfortable feelings aren't going to kill her. And I was like, you have a really good point, because I mean, it's one of those things that whenever we're so young and whenever we go through something so traumatic or painful, it feels like it's going to kill us. And I guess that's why that survival mechanism just kind of kicks in, right?
True. But matter of fact is, you're still sitting here and I'm still sitting here, regardless of what we've been through. That means we already survived it. It's not really happening anymore. But it feels like it's still happening, because there are still parts frozen in that pain, still parts that are split off.
Okay. So, oh man, it's so strange that it's like it just gets frozen in time. So, like, it makes me feel like time is really just not what we think it is.
We can definitely have a whole discussion about time.
Well, I mean, so it's strange because we have to both go back for ourselves, and we also have to be there for ourselves and kind of let our inner child, or let the split version know, like, hey, we made it through. But a lot of the times there's still guilt kind of there, right? Like, one version of guilt is like, why did I let myself do this to myself? Another version is like, well, if that happened, then why did it happen anyways? And I mean, there's a lot to it. So I can definitely see why this is a process. It's not just like, oh, hey, come in and we're going to talk about this one thing and you're good to go forever. Because just because we heal a root doesn't necessarily, or we clear the root, doesn't necessarily mean that another one could come and take its place of sorts, right?
Yes, and exactly. And we heal through layers. It's like, I'm sure you've heard of that analogy of the onion. You peel off the layers of the onion, but it's really like that. It's like there's so many layers, and I believe that at each given point in time, our subconscious allows for trauma to surface that we're ready to cope with, and nothing that we're not ready yet to cope with will ever show up.
Yeah.
I've seen that over and over and over again with my clients, even with myself, that certain things will only surface. Like, even though I've dealt with so much, there's certain memories that will only surface, even now, today, like even this week, like last week, I had memories surface that I couldn't believe that I was still dissociated from that. And I've been doing this work for so many years, but it was such a painful memory that entailed so much that I was only ready to cope with it now. And that's okay. There's no shame, and our subconscious will do whatever it takes to keep us safe. And we will process whatever we're ready to process.
Okay. I love that. And I mean, that sounds exactly kind of what I've been going through, because whenever I look back at my story, it's not that the story and the facts have changed. It's the way that I interpret it and the way that I'm able to handle it, and sometimes it is like, oh, I did really kind of handle that shittily. Or sometimes it's like, maybe I could have done a little bit better, but at the same time, I can only say that because my perspective has grown, has increased. I can't blame myself for things I didn't know back then. And that's one of the really hard things to kind of cope with, is like, well, damn it, I should have known better, but I didn't really know anything whenever I was like 3 years old.
Sure. We didn't know. We do the best that we can at each given point in time. The best as a 3-year-old is not the best as a 20-year-old or a 30-year-old or later on in life. Like, we grow, and as we grow also, people even go back often to the same memory over and over again. Every time they go back to that memory, they access another part, another layer that they weren't able to cope with before. Or they uncover another thing that happened that day that they weren't able to look at before because it was so painful. So even within a memory, there's so many feelings and emotions, so many layers to that it takes time. And that's, again, in trauma, we say slow is fast.
Okay.
Because when we try to rush through our healing, it just doesn't work. We'll hit a wall, and then we'll say, oh, it's all too much and I don't want to do this crap. This is not helping me, because we go into overwhelm. So it's really being attuned, what your pace is, and it's okay.
Yeah. And I really love that slow is fast, because whenever I was an apprentice electrician, I'd always ask my journeyman, like, how do you get so fast at doing what you're doing and stuff? And I mean, he was fast at what he could do, but he said one of the things was experience. But the thing that he said that has always stuck with me, especially for like trying to not make mistakes and stuff, is that slow is steady and steady is fast. And I was like,
there you go.
Yeah, I was like, oh, okay. And I mean, the more I think about it and the more that I've experienced life, it is very much like, if I try to rush things, the universe finds a way to tell me to hit the brakes.
True.
So one of the things I'm also curious about is that as we work and we start clearing some of these emotions and we start getting to the roots of stuff, we have to kind of replace that belief or that lie with something else, right? Or will something come and take its place by itself?
I know that there is a lot of there are a lot of healing modalities out there that work, and I studied some of those too, where you replace a certain belief with like positive beliefs, or where you have to fill that void. With brain spotting, you don't have to do that.
Ooh.
It's just trying to think like how to explain this. In brain spotting, it's our nervous system regulates itself and like brings itself back to balance. And that also happens in our brain. Like today, there's a lot of talk about the neuroplasticity of the brain and how our brain can make new connections as we brain spot. And also because it happens through the eyes and goes straightly connects to our limbic brain. That correction, that neuroplasticity, the brain makes new connections as you process, and you don't need to fill in a new belief instead of.
Okay.
Because it's like, think of it like that. Your kitchen floor is dirty. Okay.
Okay.
And you take a broom and you start sweeping everything up. And you clean and you clean and you clean and you take a mop and you wash the floor. Floor is clean, right?
Yeah.
There's nothing else that you need to put there and in order to make sure that it's really clean or that it doesn't get dirty. It'll get dirty just because of life, because you're going to continue cooking and we will get dysregulated again because life happens and things happen and they will trigger other stuff within us. Which is normal.
Yeah.
And then we have to clean up again. But when that floor is clean, it's clean. There's nothing else to fix. And it's the same thing. I know it's a weird analogy, but it's the same thing sort of with what happens in our brain. We don't need to do something else. Once we've cleaned it up, it's clean.
Okay.
And if there's residue, then there's just more to work on. Okay. Yeah. And then maybe there's a little bit of residue left, like in the corner of your kitchen that will resurface next time. And then we'll sweep that up too.
Okay. And I mean, maybe it's like you only have so much energy to do part of the kitchen and then you can move on to the pantry next time or something.
Beautiful.
Okay. Huh. I really like that. And yeah, I mean, it's weird how the body just kind of knows, and we like to think our way out of it. Does that make sense?
Yes. It makes a lot of sense, but we can't think our way out of it.
Yeah. And I mean, because for me, it's kind of going back to something that I mentioned earlier, is that whenever we do this healing kind of stuff, whenever we are changing those beliefs, in a sense, we're getting rid of that filter, we're kind of changing how we perceive life itself. So we're changing our experience, and changing that experience essentially changes who we are. And a lot of us, myself included, can be terrified of change, as depending on what it is. And it's like, well, if I change, then who am I after? You know? So how do you help people walk through that? Because that's got to be scary.
Change. I think once somebody finds themselves on that healing journey, like you, okay, even though you say, I'm terrified of change, there is a part of you that craves that change and that will move towards whatever it takes to find that something that feels real to you, that feels aligned for you.
Okay.
So we can have both at the same time. We can be scared of the change and we can still also move towards the change.
Okay, that makes a lot of sense. And it makes me think of something that was saying, like, growth often asks for one thing, and it's for the courage to let go. And I was like, ooh, I don't like that. Because, I mean, growth is asking for me to let go of those lies, let go of those old things that kept me small, that kept me hidden. It's just crazy to think that we kind of create that feedback loop to where, like, oh, I feel this way, or like I hurt my elbow, and now everything is affecting that spot. And do you think that that's kind of like early signs of like, hey, you need to address this right now, or is that something else?
It definitely means you need to address this, but sometimes it takes people years or a lifetime to address this. And they're just so used to that pain or discomfort, because that's what they know. And they know how to deal with that pain in your elbow, and they know how to pay attention already, not to re-injure that elbow, even though that elbow hurts all the time. But actually looking at the pus in that elbow is really scary. And I think that's what you mentioned before, that fear of change. And often it feels so much more comfortable sitting in your own despair because you're so familiar with that despair. You know how to cope with that. It's been with you your whole life. Basically, you take it to breakfast, lunch, and dinner, and as uncomfortable it is, but it's also your stinky, cozy blanket that you feel like you can cover yourself with, and you know how to sit in that blanket. And starting to take that blanket off and look at what's underneath, that's scary. And I think only when we're so sick and tired of that despair, then we're like, I know most people that come and see me, they've had it like up to here. It's like, they're like, I'm drowning. I can't take this anymore. I'm like at this place in my life where, I can't go on like that, basically. That's what they're saying.
Yeah.
And that's when we're ready to say, okay, fine, whatever it takes.
Okay, so being a little bit desperate, maybe.
Yeah. Often we need to be desperate in order to step onto that journey.
Okay. And
yeah.
And like you said, once you kind of start the journey, there's really no going back, is there?
For many of us, there isn't. Yeah.
And I mean, it's interesting because we really do sit there and, I mean, you're right. Because for me, whenever I've come across something where it's like, oh, this may feel a little weird, it's also like there's a part of me that's like, but it might feel good.
Yeah.
And
yeah,
it's just one of those things that you really can't tell people how it feels. We can kind of describe it at the same time. So like for you, how was like stepping into parts of yourself that you hadn't really visited in a long time and kind of clearing your blockages?
For me, it was ever since I was 16, I'd suffered from manic depression. I was on a high or on a low. And it was so bad that when I came to my 20s, when I was on a high, I was already terrified of the low that was going to follow, because I knew, oh my God, this is like, the high is way too high, and I know it's going to hit me and it's going to be devastating. And I had no middle ground. There was no just being present. There was like the extreme feelings, high, low. And I think most people that feel dysregulated, they don't have that middle ground where they can just, I want to say, just be present. Everybody speaks about being present, and it's at the same time the hardest thing to just be present with what is. And I started, at some point, the depression was so unbearable, and there was no more high. So there was no more relief. There was just low. And that's when I said, okay, I can't. That's when I had my, okay, I can't go on like that anymore. I can't.
Yeah.
And the first step for me was I did, the therapy that I went to was somatic therapy through the body. Basically, it was body work. And through the body work was working through the feelings and emotions that are in the body, and working through trauma that sits in the body through body work, which is also the first thing I studied. First 3 years of my training was exactly that. It's called the Greenberg method. That was really the first time that I learned about awareness and paying attention. Okay, I'm depressed now. I wasn't depressed 10 minutes ago. I'm depressed now. What happened? What triggered my depression? And sometimes it took me in the beginning, it took me like even 3, 4, 5 days to understand what had triggered that depression. And it's like working a muscle, awareness. Eventually I could see the same second, like I would be depressed. And then a few minutes later, I said, okay, what just happened? Okay, somebody cut the line in front of me at the post office and made me angry. But I was like, my dissociation didn't even allow me to be in touch with my anger. Didn't even allow me to notice that every time I get angry, it would just be something that would pass by me, that anger, because I didn't know how to feel anger.
Yeah.
I was so numbed out, and anger was a scary feeling to feel. I was a pleaser. So my coping mechanism was to please, 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 and make sure that everyone is okay, and to be in tune to everyone around me and try to meet their needs before they even knew that they had a need. So anger was definitely not in the mix of feelings and emotions. So I had to learn that there was anger, and that, it's all of that suppressed stuff that I had inside of me that caused the depression. And as I learned that, I learned, like once you learn that awareness thing, that's huge. And that helps with everything else.
Okay. Oh, thank you for sharing that. And I mean, I'm kind of right there with you too. Like anger has been one of those things that I've always kind of struggled with and I didn't like doing, but I was also very much a people pleaser and still kind of am from time to time, unfortunately. But it's one of those things that I'm learning to not do, but in the more respectful way, and also learning that no can be a complete sentence, which is also very strange. But like whenever you talk about your awareness, do you actually like feel it in your body, like move around and stuff like that?
The awareness? Huh? Also, I can be like, oh, my back hurts. Okay. And I can just pay attention to that. Sometimes just becoming aware of something already changes the way I hold my body, the way I walk. That might sometimes an easy enough fix. So it can be physical. You can notice some things in your body. I don't always have an answer why I feel the way I feel, until now. Sometimes it takes me a while to figure out, okay, what triggered this. When it's still dissociated parts of me, it can take me longer to get to the root cause of it. And it might take sometimes a week or a few weeks to resolve something because it's still layered, but it shows up. It means it's calling my attention. It's brought in my awareness. Hey, there's an issue. Something here wants my attention and needs to be dealt with. And then I can take care of it.
Okay. Oof. Thank you. And I hope that, I hope other people can really start to be a little bit more aware of themselves, especially after this conversation, because unfortunately we are near the end of this episode. I did forget to ask real quick, where can people find you if they're looking for your help?
They can find me. The easiest way to find me is through my website, naomimorad.com.
Okay.
And I work both in person and virtually. I work with people, to be honest, all around the world. And I see people in my office here in Atlanta where I live. And I always invite whoever reaches out, I invite people for an intro call, free of cost, just to get to know each other, see if we're a good fit, and if they have questions, and we take it from there.
Awesome. Thank you for sharing that. I wish that this was one of those conversations that I had way back when, and it's one of those that I also have to remind myself that even if I had this conversation, or even if I heard this conversation back then, it wouldn't have stuck like it does now.
That's true. That's true. And thank you so much for having me for the third time. I love being on your show. I love talking to you. It's always fun, always interesting. And yeah, really huge thank you.
Yes, it's both ways, honor and a pleasure. And I mean, it's amazing work that you do for the world, because whenever we can work on ourselves and get better for ourselves, that's how we can make the world a little bit of a better place for those around us too. And hopefully Yeah, and hopefully not go causing some of the same pitfalls for others that we fell into our first time too. And because hurt people, and healed people heal people, or at least prevent the hurting from happening as best as they can.
It's so true. Hurt people, and the more we heal, people heal also through us just by being in our presence.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and it's one of those things that we experience it whenever we're ready to experience it. And
yes.
Definitely. I just hope some people out there are desperate enough to try something new, to receive some information that may be coming from left field from them, and just be able to understand that it's okay. Like, it's okay to have that pain from the past. It's okay to want to change. It's okay to want to heal. It doesn't mean that something's wrong or broken. It's just that we told ourselves an incorrect story a long time ago.
Exactly.
Well, Naomi, again, thank you for being on the show. And everyone out there, thank you for listening on WDJY 99.1 FM. And as always, try to love yourself, love others if you can, but you got to try to love yourself first. Try to be your favorite version of yourself today. And if you're having a mental health crisis, you can dial 988, text 741-741, and we'll see y'all in the future. Schlan.